Hey there, friends, and welcome to episode 250 of Just the Zoo of Us. In this week's episode, I am joined by a wildlife educator who is here to tell us all about a modern-day dinosaur with some pretty extreme approaches to life. We're talking about bizarre beaks with built-in resonance chambers, the most unpleasant nesting situation I have ever heard of in my life, how zoos are helping to conserve endangered birds in the wild, and so much more. Just the Zoo of Us presents the Rhinoceros Hornbill with Sarah Skebba. Hello, everybody. This is Ellen Weatherford. I'm here with Just the Zoo of Us, your favorite animal review podcast. I'm so excited to bring a brand new friend to talk to you all today. This is Sarah Skebba. Say hi, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you. Before we get into it, real quick, Sarah, what are your pronouns?
She, her.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk about our cool animal for today because it is funky. This is an animal that has a lot going on. There's a lot happening here with this animal. But before we talk about this animal, I would like to talk about you a little bit. Now, Sarah, how did you get into the work that you do with animals?
My background originally is in zoos and aquariums and in a lab that I was in college. I grew up in Ohio and I always loved animals. I always knew I wanted to work with wildlife and nature, but I didn't actually know what I was going to do, which I think is what a lot of young people deal with. And I actually went to college for environmental engineering. And then after about 2 years, I was like, this is not what I was expecting. And I switched around a little bit and ended up in conservation biology and ecology as my degree. And while I was in college, I had a really awesome opportunity to work in a lab. It was a reptile physiology lab. So we worked with I was in Arizona at that time. So we worked with a lot of native species like rattlesnakes and Gila monsters, which was so awesome.
No shortage of really cool reptiles in Arizona. What a place to be studying reptile physiology.
And coming from Ohio and being thrown into that completely different type of ecosystem, I was like, wow, this is exotic and amazing. And we got to do work in the lab with the animals, and we got to do a lot of field work too. So that was great. And at that time, too, I had started working at a couple local zoos and aquariums, selling tickets before I got into the education department. And that's kind of where I found my niche. And I really kind of fell in love with wildlife education and was working full-time doing that when COVID happened. And then that obviously put a little pause in the plan. And
it requires some problem solving.
Yes, a bit. And we got furloughed at the job that I was at. And was actually a great opportunity for me to kind of spread my wings a little bit more and continue making educational content. And I started a small business called educating, and that's what I do now. So I teach a lot online, both directly through the website and through a platform called OutSchool. And we make a science curriculum program specifically for kids who love animals, because that's what I felt like I needed when I was a kid. And I get to spend all day talking about animals, and it's the best.
And what a cool way to increase accessibility for wildlife education, not just in the sort of specific context of, okay, nobody can go to the zoo right now, everybody has to stay home, but also not just for that, but for people who just otherwise couldn't get to a zoo. Maybe you don't live near a zoo, maybe that's just not in the cards for you, a really cool way to increase accessibility to that educational content.
Yeah, which was mostly my intention, specifically because when the zoos were all shut down, most zoos were making digital content. And so part of what I was doing was just helping to kind of spread that information and spread the videos so that people could really see what was going on behind the scenes. And it was really fun.
I loved the period of time where zoos and stuff were just posting videos of them taking their animals to see the other exhibits because there were no people at the zoo. So they were walking the penguins around.
Yeah. The zoo that I was at had a really cool program. We had a bunch of baby flamingos at the time. And so the flamingos would take a tour around the zoo and just get to kind of explore, and it was so fun to see.
That has to be two-way enrichment, right? Because for the flamingos, it's like, oh, I get to see all these cool like rhinos and elephants. And for the other animals in the exhibit, they're like, what is that?
Right, and it actually added another enrichment in there. It was probably enrichment for all the keepers too, who were like, we get a break, we get to take a walk with flamingos. Does it get any better?
What a fun time on like social media and stuff where people just had, because everyone kind of had to like get a little creative. Like everybody kind of had to be like, okay, what we usually do isn't going to work right now. So let's branch out.
Like, how do we entertain the people from at home?
Now, Sarah, the animal that we are talking about today is a really, really cool animal. Have you had an opportunity to work with this animal?
I have not worked with them directly in terms of caring for them, but in the zoo that I was working at, the keepers were part of a really awesome project that was happening in Southeast Asia where the Rhinoceros Hornbill lives. And so I got very familiar with their behaviors and their conservation efforts that were happening to protect them. We were doing at the time behavioral observation studies, trying to learn more about their nesting, and I got to participate in that and hear from the keepers about their travels in the project. And I really love weird animals. The weirder, the better. And that is very true about the hornbill. They're very weird.
That's what you're getting here.
Yes.
This one has kind of lost the plot a little bit.
Right. They were like, the rest of the hornbills are doing that, but I'm going to do this, and I'm going to look a little weirder and do things a little bit bigger and bolder. And
an innovator, a trendsetter.
Yes, truly.
So we're talking about rhinoceros hornbills today. For anyone who is listening and has no idea what we're talking about, could you introduce us to this? It's a bird, by the way.
It is a bird.
Which we haven't said out loud.
Yes, I'm happy to introduce us. The rhinoceros hornbill is a fairly large bird. I believe it's one of the largest birds in Southeastern Asia. It's a member of the hornbill family, which has over 50 species. And they're called hornbills because many of the species, especially the rhinoceros hornbills, has a very large horn-like structure on their beak. We call it a casque. And different species have casques that look different from one another. Some species don't have a casque at all. Some species live in Africa. So if any of our listeners are familiar with The Lion King, Zazu is a red-billed hornbill, but he doesn't have a casque on his beak. And that species just doesn't.
Okay, so that's typical of the species. That wasn't just an inaccuracy.
Yes, some species just don't have one. For some species, it's also very small. And I think a lot of people get confused because they see a hornbill that doesn't have a casque and they think it's a toucan because they have the same
for sure
large, colorful bill.
For sure. I always thought Zazu was supposed to be a toucan.
Like a really lost toucan because you're like, why are you in Africa?
A toucan who is out of his element, perhaps.
Right.
But they do have that like toucan like look though.
Yeah. And rhinoceros hornbills specifically, we say occupy the same ecological niche as a toucan, which I like to think of as kind of their place in the environment. But it's helpful when you're thinking of an animal's niche, think about anything in its environment that it could compete over. Food, a shelter, a nesting site. Toucans and rhinoceros hornbills are nearly identical in all of those things. So if they did live near each other, eventually one would outcompete the other.
So it's probably a good thing they have some distance, right? Like,
yeah, quite a bit of distance, yeah.
We like to see them both thrive, right? We'd hate to see one outshine the other.
Yes, definitely.
It's like you don't want two people wearing the same dress to the same event, right?
Oh, that'd be so embarrassing.
I know, like one of us has to change.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of similarities, but quite a few differences as well, not just in their physical appearance with the casques, but also a little bit in their behavior. But I would say more similarities than differences.
Are they related?
They're not related at all.
Really?
Toucans make up their own family and hornbills are a completely separate family.
Huh. What a funny coincidence.
I know. I would imagine it probably is less of a coincidence than we could attribute it to. Thinking of how animals that are fairly similar, that live in similar ecosystems and are similar in general, often have similar adaptations just because they both need the same things.
One might say that they evolve convergently
in
a way.
Say they did. I think many might say that they did.
We love convergent evolution. We can't get enough of it. We talk about it all the time. But like you see that sort of two organisms that come from a different evolutionary background will be like, well, you know what? Actually, a big cool bill kind of helps. So I think we'll do it too.
Definitely. And that big bill is used for kind of the same reason for toucans and rhinoceros hornbills. They're both primarily frugivores. They're both fruit eaters. So if you're standing on a branch and there's fruit all around you, having a nice long bill allows you to grab fruit and little animals from around you without having to jump or fly, and that's going to help them save energy. My favorite joke to make, one of my favorite bad jokes to make, is that humans are the only animals that run for fun. Every other type of animal is desperately trying to conserve energy. And so for toucans and hornbills, that's the case with their big long beaks.
What if instead of having to like get up to reach your fridge, you just had like a really, really long arm that you could just like from the couch reach back and pull open your fridge and grab a snack? Like, wouldn't you if you could?
Absolutely. If I could have an Elastigirl arm and just my fridge is right there. It's so close. I could do it if I was just Elastigirl.
Just go gadget arm sort of right out there. Although, because then for it to be analogous to the hornbill, your arm would have to be huge all the time. Like you'd have to just have
that's true.
One huge arm.
The poor t-shirt companies are like, we cannot help you.
We're done. I'm sorry. You just have to always wear sleeveless tanks.
Yeah, right.
Let's get into the ratings for rhinoceros hornbills. If this is anyone's first time ever listening to this podcast, our whole deal is that we review animals by rating them out of 10 in different categories, and the first one is effectiveness. This is physical adaptations, things built into the animal's body that let it do a good job of the things that it's trying to do. So, Sarah, what do you give rhinoceros hornbills out of 10 for effectiveness?
I was trying to, make fair ratings, slightly harsh ratings, because I'm trying to be honest here. But for effectiveness, I did give them a 9, kind of for 3 main reasons.
Okay.
Compared to other hornbills, rhinoceros hornbills have one of the largest casques of any species, and their casque is primarily used for amplifying their sound. It's basically a giant resonation chamber.
Really?
Yes. And one thing that we have found is that species that live in rainforest versus like Zazu, who lives in a more open savanna, species that live in rainforest tend to have a larger casque because their sound doesn't travel as easily because of all the trees in their way. So the species that live in a more open area don't necessarily need the same sound amplification as the forest species. So I gave them a 9 because they're very effective and they're very loud honking sound.
Also, like if you have animals that live in a forested area, you're not going to have a lot of line of sight.
Right.
Like, you're not going to be able to just look around and see what else is near you, right? You have to use sound to communicate because you're just not going to have a lot of opportunity to see each other from far away.
Exactly.
It's reminding me a lot of the proboscis monkey, which also lives in Southeast Asian forests and also has that like dramatic, huge nose as a resonance chamber, like to make the louder sound. So that's really interesting that you see that same feature.
Yeah, and actually I feel like probably an endless list of examples. I'm thinking Simon gibbons and orangutans who the males have those really large pouches underneath their chin. Same thing, except there's just inflate and deflate, unlike a rhinoceros hornbill's casque.
Yeah, it's kind of stuck like that, huh?
Yeah, it definitely is.
I can't think of any other birds, though, that have like an acoustic adaptation to the bill. When I think of like birds with acoustic adaptations, I think about like, their syrinx, like their voice, right, that they'll have like adaptations to their throat to make different sounds. I don't know of any others that have this like hard structure.
Yeah, well, I assume you're talking of something like a frigate bird, the magnificent frigate birds who have those giant red, they almost look like balloons.
Yeah, or like a sage grouse that do the big, like the booming sound. But I don't know of any other birds that are like, I'm going to build it right into right into the bill.
Right. And even cassowaries have a casque too, but their casque is made out of other stuff. And I think scientists hypothesize that it could have to do with sound amplification, but a rhinoceros hornbill's casque has kind of webbing in between, like of a bony keratin material. And because it's more hollow than a cassowary's casque, it's going to do a better job resonating the sound.
Oh, I see. If you look at a picture of it, you could definitely see, because it looks like it would be really heavy.
Well, you actually just segued perfectly into one of the other reasons that I gave them a 9 for effectiveness.
Amazing.
It is heavy. It's not as heavy as it would be if it was solid. I believe there's only one species of hornbill that has a solid casque. It's the helmeted hornbill, and they're actually hunted pretty heavily for their casques. They call it hornbill ivory, the stuff that it's made out of. So theirs is quite heavy, but a rhinoceros hornbills, because their casque is so big, it still is pretty heavy. Most hornbill species, one of the other things that makes them so effective is carrying around that gigantic casque. 2 of the vertebrae in their neck, the first 2 bones in their neck, are fused together.
Oh my gosh.
So they basically make one giant bone, which helps to support their head and hold it upright.
They had to build this thing into their skeleton.
Yeah. Their neck was like, help, we can't hold it up.
We need to do something different. We got to fuse these vertebrae together because this is too much.
Yeah, well, and it worked. And I believe that they're the only family of birds that has that adaptation. So it's kind of unique to them.
You know what this reminds me of a little bit too is there's like a very common sort of discussion around what non-avian dinosaurs would have sounded like where paleontologists try to like reconstruct what kind of sounds they may have made. And like a lot of that you can't necessarily reconstruct because we don't have remains of the structures that would have made their sounds because that's all like soft tissue. But if it's a hard casque like this, like that's something that would be preserved like long term. But with the extinct dinosaurs, they're like, I don't know, maybe something like this. But there's a lot of dinosaurs that people have thought, like the Parasaurolophus, right? With like the big, is it a casque on the back of its head?
I wouldn't be surprised if it is something incredibly similar to a casque. I'm not completely sure, but I do love seeing that kind of stuff because it, to me, makes me think that all these animals that are alive today are just tiny dinosaurs, and I love it.
Yeah. And I'm pulling up Wikipedia so I can get the right word, and this is not helping at all because there's a lot of words on here I don't understand. Okay, cranial crest is what it's calling it, that goes like off into the back of its head. And I have seen a lot of, and I don't know how reputable this information is, so take this with a grain of salt, but I have heard some like suggestion that was for sound amplification, kind of like with the hornbill, like a resonance chamber to give them a very funny honking sound.
Yeah, I wonder if that is it. Can you tell if it's made out of bone or if it's solid?
I'm looking at the skull, and the cranial crest is part of the skull.
Huh.
So it looks like it is solid bone. I don't know if it's bone on the inside. Oh, the crest was hollow, with distinct tubes leading from each nostril to the end of the crest before reversing direction and heading back down the crest and into the skull. So I'm wondering if maybe there's something here.
That sounds exactly like that would be used for.
So I've never heard a rhinoceros hornbill sound. Is it like a honking sound?
It is kind of a honking sound, yeah. And at zoos, I've seen them do it at lots of zoos where they all kind of gather together. In the wild, they are found in small groups during the non-breeding season, and then during the breeding season, they've just usually found in their pairs. So when it's the non-breeding season and they're living in the small groups together, which is typically how we see them at zoos, I've seen them all gathered together kind of simultaneously lifting their head up as high as they can and making the honking sound. And you'll be standing on the other side of the zoo going, what in the world is that? So when they all do it at once, it sounds really incredible.
Do both the males and the females have the casque, or is it just males?
Both males and females have the casques. There is one kind of simple way to tell them males and females apart, but I'm going to wait to say that until we get to the aesthetic category.
Okay. So I used to live in Jacksonville, and at the Jacksonville Zoo, they had rhinoceros hornbills there, so I got to see them up close a lot. They were so good at catching food out of the air.
Yes, definitely.
Because it looks like they would be clumsy. They're agile. They're very agile.
Yes, they definitely are. And the first time you see it, you're like, wow, could a toucan do that? Can other birds do that? But for rhinoceros hornbills, it's part of their breeding behavior, their bonding behavior, to toss fruit back and forth to one another. And so that is a behavior that they would be doing in the wild anyways. Unlike a toucan who has a really long tongue and they can kind of use that to manipulate their food, rhinoceros hornbills don't. So when they grab fruit, they have to toss it up into the air and catch it further back in their beak so that they can actually swallow it. So if they didn't have great fruit beak coordination, they'd have a really hard time eating.
I was looking at pictures of them, and you can see they have a little bit of an S shape to their neck, almost like a heron or something, but like not as long.
Yeah.
But they do have kind of a long neck.
And I wonder, this is my hypothesis, I don't know for sure, I wonder if it has to do with their crop, the part in their neck where they store the food. I'm going to talk about this in a couple minutes when we talk about their nesting behavior, but the males specifically need to be able to carry a lot of fruit in their crop. So I wonder if maybe that has to do with it, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so these are not predatory birds, right? They're looking for fruit and everything, but something you do have to worry about is someone else trying to eat you, right? Like, you don't want to become prey.
Yeah.
So do they have any sort of like defenses? Do they have any, or are they just kind of sitting there hoping for the best?
Not that I know of. And to my understanding, they don't have a ton of predators, particularly as adults, because they are so large and they're found sometimes more than 100 feet up in the trees. So they're hard for a predator to reach, and their chicks are typically safe because they are sealed inside of a nest cavity, which is, I'm trying to decide if I should talk about their nesting now, but I feel like I need to save it for ingenuity.
Yes, for sure. Because I was looking at pictures of them, and in some of the pictures, the casque has this sort of like upward swoop where it kind of points up. And like, if you didn't really know what the casque was all about, it would reasonably look like some sort of defensive, sort of like almost like a spike or a club or something.
Yeah, and I don't know. They may use it as a weapon, but that's definitely not its primary use. Other species like the great hornbill, they'll actually use their casques for in-flight combat. The males will smash their casques into each other while they're flying, but that's the only kind of fighting, so to speak, that I've seen records of for the hornbills.
I can imagine it looks intimidating, right? So maybe if you look kind of tough.
Yeah. Well, and you're big and you've got this kind of, I always joke that birds that have a really big beak, specifically like a pelican, it's like they have a knife on their face. It's like a weapon on their face. I'm not going to mess with that.
And they have a bonus knife.
Yeah.
They're dual wielding up there.
And the casque is dull, so even more painful, right? Like
it's dealing bludgeoning damage. You're getting blunt force trauma if you step to this guy.
I personally would not.
No, I wouldn't. Hey y'all, we are going to take a quick break to hear from a couple of our friends on the Maximum Fun Network. When we get back, we are going to get into ingenuity and aesthetics for the Rhinoceros Hornbill, so stay with us.
Hello, sleepyheads. Sleeping with Celebrities is your podcast pillow pal. We talk to remarkable people about unremarkable topics, all to help you slow down your brain and drift off to sleep. For instance, the remarkable actor Alan Tudyk.
You hand somebody a yardstick after they've shopped at your general store. The store's name is constantly in your heart because yardsticks become part of the family.
Sleeping with Celebrities, hosted by me, John Moe, on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Night-night.
The following are real reenactments of pretend emergency calls.
911. My husband! It's my husband! Calm down, please. What about your husband? He loads the dishwasher wrong. Please help! Please help me! Where are you now, ma'am? At the kitchen table. I was with my dad. He mispronounces words intentionally.
There are plenty of podcasts on the hunt for justice, but only one podcast has the courage to take on the silly crimes. Judge John Hodgman, the only true crime podcast that won't leave you feeling sad and bad and scared for once. Only on MaximumFun.org.
The next category that we rate animals on is ingenuity. These are behaviors, things that they're doing to solve problems that they face, thrive in their ecosystem. What do you give rhinoceros hornbills out of 10 for ingenuity?
I give them an 8. And I almost gave them a 7, which I'll explain because they've got a lot of stuff going for them, right? Like the honking behavior, that type of communication, the fruit tossing, the bonding with the mate, that all kind of to me shows intelligence. And they're monogamous and typically have their mate for life, provided that something doesn't happen. And so that's all great. But I gave them a bit of a lower score here because their nesting behavior is really extreme and can be kind of problematic in a couple different ways.
Uh-oh.
Many species of hornbills will do this, where the only place they build a nest is in a cavity on the side of a tree. So if there's a very large cavity that was created by a woodpecker, but more frequently what happens is a branch will fall off the tree and kind of rip open a hole in the side. And so hornbills will nest there, and they'll often use the same nest year after year. Once it comes time to lay their eggs, the female will get inside of the nest, and the male, I believe, helps as well. But they use fruit and mud and poop, and they use all of that to seal the opening of the tree cavity shut, except for this tiny little crack almost that's just big enough for food to be passed through. And the female is stuck inside there.
Absolutely not. Hard pass.
The claustrophobia, I could never. But she
Absolutely
doesn't
not.
mind it. She's like, this is great. It is kind of great in a way because it'd be very challenging for a predator to get in there or even to find them. So that is part of the reason why I gave them an 8 and not a 7. But the female stuck in there, that she sits on that egg for upwards of 40 days, and she will be in that nest for more than 2 months sometimes. And while she's in there, sitting on the egg and then the chick, she's completely dependent on the male to provide all food.
I was thinking about, like, what if something happens to the male? She's toast. She's cooked. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, precisely my point. Anything could happen at any time. And if you're completely reliant on your mate to bring you food, then you're in big trouble if something happens, especially because females will go through a complete molt of their feathers while they're in there. And so if something happens to the male while they're in the process of molting, even if they can break out of the nest, they can't fly while they're in that stage of molting.
Horrible timing.
Right. So definitely the threat of something happening to the male is a big deal, but also deforestation is a massive problem for them because they're only nesting in these really giant old growth trees in primary forests. And that's what we're losing really fast. And since they use the same nest year after year, if something happens to their nest tree and they have to go find another one, it's getting harder and harder to find a suitable nest. So because of how specific the needs of their nesting behaviors are, that's why I gave them kind of a lower score for ingenuity, because while it is very interesting and they're safe from predators, it's getting more and more dangerous for them every year.
Does this make it challenging for zoos to keep them if they're going to, like, if they want to set it up so that these animals will breed, right? Like, does this make it really challenging for a zoo because they have such specific needs?
Yes. And a lot of zoos, especially in the United States, are participating in this artificial nest box program that is being run by a couple conservation organizations in Southeast Asia, like Bhutan. What they're doing is designing these big barrels, basically, that are in the shape of a tree cavity, and they've got a fairly large opening on the front, and they're hoisting them 100 feet sometimes up into these trees in the middle of the rainforests of the middle of nowhere, and using those as fake nest boxes for them. And in the wild, we've seen hornbills using them for probably the last 10 or so years. But zoos have been a great place to practice on the effectiveness of the nest boxes, because they're trying to mimic the temperature inside of the nest box. What kind of material should we use? Should it be plastic? Should it be wood? Should we use sawdust or mulch? What goes in it? Is the humidity right? And so there's all sorts of things that they need to kind of test before they waste a ton of time and energy hauling a nest box into the middle of nowhere and then 100 feet into a tree.
Just on the hopes that some birds like it.
Right. And it's actually been kind of funny reading some of the reports, because sometimes the nest boxes won't be used for a couple years by hornbills, but they find other animals using them too. And they're like, get out of here. This is not for you.
This is not for you.
Didn't you read the sign? Hornbills only.
This is for different wildlife. Not that one.
Right. You're doing fine. Let the hornbills have this.
Let them have the one thing.
Yeah. But zoos have been really great in kind of getting those nest boxes well designed and effective.
You know, you mentioned that like having to control the temperature and the humidity is kind of making some things make sense why I, saw them at zoos in Florida pretty often, because Florida has like one of the most analogous like climates to Southeast Asia in the United States. It's like close to the equator, very hot, very humid.
Yep.
Very rainy seasons, so like you do kind of get the same climate that they would be pretty used to. I'd imagine they would find it pretty comfy.
Yeah, I would think so too. And so somewhere like Florida would be a great place to really put those things to the test and see what, because they got all sorts of trackers and thermometers and what have you that they put inside the nest boxes to keep track of all that stuff. And some zoos put little cameras in there too, and that's always very fun.
And then you get to see the babies.
Yeah, and the babies are weird, no offense, because they are born with almost no casque. It's really small, and then over the first 6 months to a year of their life, it really starts to grow. And so the baby hornbills don't even really look like hornbills because they're missing the one key rhinoceros hornbill feature.
Can I tell you what they remind me of so much? And this is going to be such a deep cut, and I don't know if you're going to have any idea what I'm talking about, but have you seen The Land Before Time?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Do you know the cherry scene where all these baby little pterosaurs are like tumbling over each other to try to get this one cherry? Okay, do a quick Google search. Just type in Land Before Time cherry scene and just pull up the images, and you tell me that doesn't look like a bunch of little baby rhinoceros hornbills.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't that look exactly
like
them?
It totally does. Yeah, because the shape of their beak is almost exactly that of a rhinoceros hornbill chick. That's so funny. I don't remember this scene at all.
It is literally like a 2-minute scene maybe that has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It is so inconsequential, but like something about it was so like just stuck in my brain just the right way, where I think about it every time I eat a cherry.
Oh my God.
But also, like, they do like eat the fruit and they catch it out of the air like the little dinosaurs in the movie. I really got dinosaurs on the brain this episode.
I like it. I've noticed in a lot of my classes that, well, I mean, all kids love dinosaurs, but some kids are really into dinosaurs, and they're always making observations of similarities between dinosaurs they know and animals that are alive today. And the frilled lizard looks like that big neck frill.
I think it's Dilophosaurus. Nope, that's not it. I lied. No, it is Dilophosaurus. Yep, okay. That's what it is.
And I'm not overly familiar with dinosaurs, so I love when they're making those connections, because we see adaptations that dinosaurs use still working today, and that's just always very fascinating.
It's a very one-to-one comparison when you're talking about especially funky birds, right? Like birds with weird adaptations. It's like, it just feels like these are just the dinosaurs we still have.
Yeah, right. And some of them are just as unusual and kind of occasionally creepy looking, like we would maybe picture some dinosaurs. Like the shoebill, the weirdest of all the birds.
That is one that like you look at it and you don't quite know what to make of it. You're like, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm like a little nervous of you and you're just on my computer screen.
I don't know what your vibe is. I don't think I trust you.
I know. There's so many things. Now I'm like, maybe I should have picked shoebill as my animal today, because they do a lot of weird stuff too.
They do, but you know what? Rhinoceros hornbills don't get hype.
That's true.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And they should.
Agreed. They're so weird. Everything about them is so weird. And they're just cool.
So the last category that we rate animals on that I'm very excited to talk about, because I think there's a lot to say here for rhinoceros hornbills, is aesthetics. How nice is this animal to look at? Whether we think it's cute, pretty, cool, ugly, whatever you feel about rhinoceros hornbills, what do you give them out of 10 for aesthetics?
I'm going big here, and I gave them a 10, which I was hesitant to do because I didn't want to be too generous. But if we're really looking at all the different species of hornbills, rhinoceros hornbills just have a lot going for them that makes them so much different than all of the other ones. We mentioned before that they're one of the largest species and that they also have one of the largest casques of any of the hornbill species. My favorite thing about their beak and casque is that the beautiful colors that they have, kind of those orangey yellow colors, are not actually the color of their beak.
Oh.
They get the color on their beak and casque because of their preening oil.
Oh.
So lots of birds have that gland kind of near their rump that produces the oil that lots of birds kind of rub their beaks in and then rub all over their feathers to help them clean and keep the feathers organized and what have you. for rhinoceros hornbills, that oil has kind of an orangey color to it. So as they preen, it kind of slowly dyes the color of their casque and beak, that orange color.
Interesting. I wonder if you see a change in the color, like based on, I don't know, the diet of the bird or like the habitat or the setting, you know? Because you see like sometimes birds that are kept like in captivity or something, they can develop different colors if they have a different diet. So I wonder if you see a change based on where the bird is located.
I wonder that. I actually don't know.
I don't know.
I was just putting together a lesson on flamingos the other day, and something I didn't know about them was that their preening oil becomes more pink when they have more carotenoids in their diet. And the article I was reading called it, they were putting on makeup. And I was like, I never really thought about how their diet could influence the color of that oil, but it completely makes sense. So I wonder maybe if for hornbills, if depending on what part of the forest they're in, what fruits they have, if that's influencing the color.
Well, the idea of like applying a color to like, because we see this in birds, right? You're like, they might not naturally have that color, but they kind of apply it to themselves. That reminds me of the bearded vulture, which it grooms itself by like rolling around in like really, really red clay-rich soil, and it dyes its feathers red. So you get this really amazing, striking, really cool-looking bird with like spiky red anime protagonist hair.
Yeah. And you would never know if there weren't all these observations and studies that you would just kind of think that that was what they were like. But no, it's just makeup. It's bird makeup.
And see, people complain about, oh, if you wear makeup, that's not what you naturally look like. Okay, but animals put on makeup. So like maybe it is natural to just apply something to your appearance, right? Like
every day.
That's
forever.
It's just a natural, it's a thing that animals do.
Yeah, we're just like them.
I'm looking at pictures of the rhinoceros hornbill, and some of them, I will say, have a very incredible, dramatic, like, upward swirl to the casque. I love that. I think that's great. It looks beautiful, but there's also something that I don't really see come through in the pictures very well, but that I know because I got a really good picture one time of one looking directly at me. So you get a straight on view, which is not a flattering angle for birds. Most birds, you get them from dead on. It's not good.
My favorites are hawks from the front, because from the side
so
they look
nervous.
so fierce, but then from the front you can barely tell they have a beak, and they're just these giant eyes.
They look so worried.
Yeah, they
just look like sad.
You're like, me too, hawk, me too.
Birds never look good from the front, but I got a picture of a rhinoceros hornbill from dead on from the front, and what I got to see from that is their eyelashes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, incredible eyelashes.
I know. And I love when birds have kind of weird stuff like that, because you look at it and you go, it's hair. But they're feathers. They're modified feathers, and they make everyone jealous because we all wish we had eyelashes like rhinoceros hornbills. What I really thought you were just about to say was that their eye color, which is what I...
Oh my gosh, how could we forget?
I know. Well, because earlier I said there's one very simple way to tell male and female rhinoceros hornbills apart, and it's their eye color. Male rhinoceros hornbills have a red eye, and females have kind of a whitish blue eye. The females' eyes sometimes look like they're glowing if they're super, super white. But yes, if you catch them from the side and you can see their eyes, it's incredibly simple to tell a male and female apart. And I believe the only other hornbill that's like that is the great hornbill, with the same red, kind of whitish blue on the females and the red on the males. But yeah, it feels too easy, because other birds you look at and you're like, okay, well, the males have beautiful feathers or they have unusual behaviors. But for the hornbills, their feathers are almost identical. The color and shape of their casques are almost identical. So it's just those eyes that we're looking at.
I guess they would need some way, right, to be able to tell, like, if that's a potential mate opportunity or a competitor. Like, they'd need some way to kind of tell each other apart.
Right. Well, actually, now that you say that, I'm thinking of other birds, specifically something like a dove, where there's really no difference between the males and females. What, are they just using vocalizations, or? I
don't know. I guess I didn't notice until you said it that some of their eyes are this really deep scarlet, like ruby red, and then some of them have the like striking icy blue. Either way, it's great either way. You can't go wrong. They're both great.
I know. Yeah, okay. So see, that's why I gave them a 10. It's just unique. It's It's also interesting. And they're bold.
Oh, it's so bold because of the black and then like the bright like yellow and red of the beak. They also have a really cool tail. Like their tail is long and like black and white. It's really cool.
Yes, that's really the only part of their body that has something other than that kind of deep black that their wings and the rest of their body feathers have. That tail is just white with that single black stripe across the bottom, and that's
so good.
A great way to identify them as well. I think the great hornbill's tail might also be like that. And they live in a similar area as well, so it can be easy to mix those two species up because of that.
In case you missed the giant club on the top of their head.
Right.
Although when they're flying, you see it from the bottom, maybe, you need some other identifiers, because if you see them like flying overhead, I can see how you might miss the bill or not be able to see it from your angle.
And they're fairly rare. They pretty much only live in the Malayan Peninsula and then on a couple islands. They're in Borneo and Sumatra and Java. But because they live in these super dense forests and they're not one of those animals that can kind of live near people and everything's okay. They are deep in the forest away from people as much as they can.
Smart.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Agreed. But I don't think they're seen as often. So I wonder, because I think other species of hornbills in that area are more common. So I wonder really how challenging it would be to tell the different species apart from flight or from 100 feet below them in a tree.
So you know whether to kick them out of the nest box or not.
Right. Well, and that has been cool because other species other than just rhinoceros hornbills are also using it. The oriental pied hornbill, I think, was the first species in the wild to use the nest box. So it's been interesting to read the reports and kind of see how it's all been going.
That's also a cool, conservation approach, I guess. Providing more nesting. I mean, yes, I know that, ideally, you could just not have the deforestation that is causing the problem to begin with, right? But you have to kind of play with the hand that you're dealt, right? So it's like, if I can just provide them more nesting opportunities, then it's better than nothing, right? Like, they need help.
Absolutely. And theoretically, if we could put a stop to deforestation or at least do it in a more controlled format, the areas that are slowly regenerating, we just need the hornbills to hang on until those locations are more suitable for them. So it's kind of, I think, just trying to delay the hornbills and keep their population size healthy while the forest regrows, but we know that could take a really long time. So
you just got to get them through. You just got to hold out, little guy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of zoos in the U.S. that are participating in the breeding program for them. A lot of zoos are part of what's called the species survival program, where for each animal that's part of that program, one person at one zoo has all the information of every individual at every zoo, and they get to pick who goes where based on their genetics and their behaviors and their age and XYZ. So the U.S. has been doing a lot of cool stuff. AZA zoos have been doing a lot of cool stuff to help make sure that they don't go extinct.
We've really seen species survival plans come through. We've seen a lot of species make really dramatic turnarounds through species survival plans. So, I'm glad that there's one in place already. And we have a little glimmer of hope for these very funky birds.
Yes, very funky. And part of the reason, too, so right now they're listed as vulnerable with the IUCN. The other threat that they're facing aside from deforestation is hunting for their casks, for trophies, as they like to be called. This is just one of those times where the coolest thing about them one of the coolest things about them is kind of working against them because it's so cool that people think they need it.
Yeah. I wonder if that is something that could cause them to evolve to lose it, because you see this in elephants, right?
Yeah,
where elephants that were being hunted for their tusks eventually started to just not be born with tusks, because if they were going to get killed for their tusks, that would put selective pressure against being born with tusks. So then you just start to see elephant populations not have tusks anymore, which it's not good for the animal. They use those. They need those.
There was a point. There was a reason they had the adaptation.
Yeah, but then if you put pressure against that adaptation, then they're going to lose. They're not going to have it anymore, which I guess survival-wise might work out for the animal, because then they don't have the thing that they're being hunted for, but now they're at a real disadvantage at that point.
Right.
So I wonder if that's a trend that we would start to see in hornbills, starting to see either smaller or not having those casks.
That's a great question. I would wonder how long that would take for us to really see the pressure of that. Because I think you noticed before when you were looking at some of the pictures that some individuals have the really pointed casque, but for others it's kind of just flat on the top. And I think that might be, there's 3 subspecies of Rhinoceros hornbill, so I think it may have something to do with the different subspecies. But I wonder if the ones that are more pointed are more popular for poachers than the flat ones, and if we would start seeing a trend in that sense, but I'm not sure.
I know that's not something that we would probably have any sort of like data on because this is still kind of a, a recent thing, but that would be something I would wonder about for the future because we've seen it happen in other animals.
Yeah.
Would hate to, because I wouldn't want them to lose that really cool trait.
Agreed. We'd have to change their name. We'd have to find something with a smaller horn and name it after that.
The horse hornbill. They used to be called rhinoceroses, now they're just horses.
Yeah, right.
Well, Sarah, it has been so much fun. I am really thankful for your time and your energy and enthusiasm. For anybody listening who wants to either learn more about animals, learn more about wildlife and nature, could you tell people where to go next? Where can people find more of your work?
Definitely. And thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I just love to talk about animals all day, every day. So this is great. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at educating, ING at the end. And we also have 2 different websites. We have educating.com, which has a bunch of free content with animal facts and science lessons and that kind of stuff. And we have a K-8 online science curriculum program for animal-loving kids that is called Educating Adventures. And you can find that at member.educating.com.
Perfect. And I will have links to everything in the episode description. So anybody listening can just scroll down and click through and find all that stuff. I know a lot of people listen either with kids, with students, with families, so a great place to go to sate the little animal kid in your life.
Yes, we built the science program specifically because that would have engaged me a whole lot more in science if everything had a little animal twist. So that's our goal there, to get the animal-loving kids on board.
I was talking to, again, I think it was Nick Van Acker, who was talking about how he had friends in college who had taken a statistics class that was like statistics for biology majors, where it was more or less the same concepts, but being taught in terms of like, this is how you study like population dynamics in like insects and stuff like that. And it's like, well, I mean, this is just a more engaging way of explaining this content, right?
Yes. No, I kind of joke that sometimes we're like tricking them into learning science because all we're doing is talking to you about animals, but what we're really doing is talking to you about core science concepts. So we sneak it in there.
It's almost like a way to learn by application, right? Like if you learn not just an abstract concept, but like you have to learn the concept through how it manifests, right, in the observable world.
Right, and how it's directly applied.
Right. I think that's a good way to learn anything. Like I feel like I've learned a lot just through like doing this podcast and like learning concepts just from like how they appear in the natural world around us.
I've learned a lot from your podcast.
I think a lot of kids will get a lot of value from that. I think that's a great way to encourage learning, not just about animals, but like about the world and about like physics and math and all sorts of stuff that you can like, I mean, I'm a real sucker for fun facts, right? But like...
Me too. We always have, as part of that program, we call them fast facts and our species spotlight. So even if the lesson really has nothing to do with animals, we're still like, here's an animal fact for you because we know that's why you're really here.
You want those little dinner party, bust out a little did you know at the dinner table, right? Yeah. But like when you like learn a lot about it, you can kind of connect some dots and learn how things work together. And then you'll be like, oh, this is actually like a law of physics, or, oh, this is actually like, something that I can apply other things to. So yeah. I think it's great for young minds that are always growing.
Me too. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah. This has been so much fun. We will talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening. I hope that the Rhinoceros Hornbill has sealed itself away in an empty crevice of your heart. If you liked what you heard today, I hope you leave behind some kind words for us in a review on your podcast app of choice. If you want to come hang out with us online, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, Threads. Links to everything will be in the episode description. You can also send me an email at ellen@justthezooofus.com if you have a cool animal you would like to hear us talk about on the show. We would like to thank Maximum Fun for having us on their network alongside their other amazing shows like the ones that you heard promos for earlier in this episode. You can go check those out, learn more about the network and how you can be a part of supporting our show, plus get access to our exclusive monthly bonus content, which, by the way, we are putting up a brand new episode tomorrow. That's Friday, July 25th, and that's all about the animals of Naruto. So if you want to listen to that, head over to MaximumFun.org. Finally, we would like to thank Louis Zong for our theme music. That is all for today. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.